Hey, what's going on, guys? Khemyst here with another tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about how to make a Reese Bass. So I wanted to do a little sound design tutorial today for you guys on a concept that I almost always implore in any of my compositions or songs. It's probably one of my favorite patches to make just because it's so easy to make and it's almost immediately inspiring for tons of ideas. Anytime you're stuck, you can almost always rely on this to sort of pick you up and generate some sort of creative ideas. So without further ado, let's begin. So today I'm going to be using Xfer's Serum. I just think it's one of the easiest and most visually satisfying synths to use, especially for this kind of technique. So essentially with an initial patch here, we're going to pull up a saw wave. By default, that's what Serum has loaded up on the first oscillator. We're going to also open up a filter here. And of course, guys, you can use this technique and process on any synthesizer or any VST that you want, really. So we're going to grab an MG Low 24 on Serum here. Personally, I like this one the most because it's actually emulating the classic Moog ladder filter. And so why that's cool is because when you increase the drive a little bit, you're getting that very warm, full Moog sounding saturation. So I just think it gives the Reese a little bit more character, right? So the filter is going to be doing a lot of the work here, but the majority of this sound comes from the oscillator. So essentially what we're going to do, I'm going to drop the octave down by 2, just so I don't have to shift down on my MIDI controller here. We're going to move the unison up. I like to put it to an odd number just because when you do an odd number here, it actually leaves one voice in the middle. And so all those other little lines around it, you can see are copies of the signal that we made here. Now, just depending on how much CPU your computer is comfortable using or how many Serum patches you're going to have or how many oscillators you're going to open, you can change this number from anywhere between like 3 and 15, 16, whatever you're feeling. Just for the sake of the tutorial, I'll do 15 to get it as chonky and thick as I possibly can to show you guys in full here. So when I press a key, already that's pretty much the Reese sound on its own. So I mean, really, what a Reese Bass is a series of super saw waves or saw waves superimposed or stacked on top of each other with slight detuning against each other to create stereo difference, or the way our ear picks it up is it creates width out of it. So if we adjust this detune knob a little bit, we're kind of playing with some of those copied voices. And you notice we get like a wider, more crunchy texture as we kind of bring the detune up, and a little bit thinner, more closed texture when we bring those voices closer to the middle, kind of giving it more of a mono flavor as opposed to stereo. Right? And so that's pretty much it for the Reese Bass. You know, you can go crazy with all the effects if you want to, but really Reese Basses are about like certain harmonic character from a saw wave being sort of passed over by a low pass filter here. And you know what I used to like to do every now and then when I really want to give it some character or personality, I'll move the cutoff back a little bit, take an LFO, route it to there, kind of bring the modulation amount very low here. You don't really want a lot of movement. And then I'll usually go trigger, and I like to bring the LFO rate down, maybe like over a bar or two, because just take a listen. This is what it sounds like. See how it kind of slowly grows in there? So depending on how you want your Reese to morph or whatever, you can slow or speed up the LFO rate. You can also mess with the shape of it. So if you wanted to come in a little slower, right? So the trigger is going to be constantly resetting it every time I hit a new key. It's going to repeat the wave cycle. One other tip: always make sure it's in mono. I like to set my Reeses to legato, and I personally love a little bit of portamento. I like to click always, adjust the knob a bit, because then you get this nice like glide motion when you switch notes, right? So I'm sure you guys have heard this, but let's check it out. Let me turn up the portamento a little bit so you guys can hear it a little bit more definitively. Right? And so, you know, like I said, you can go into the effects window here, add some distortion if you want, but, you know, depending on what kind of texture you're going for. I find that distortion is a really fun one to use on any sort of bass patch or anything like this, because it's not just adding like more crunch or volume, it's actually shaping the harmonic characteristics of the wave form that you have going through the distortion. So obviously the more that I crank it, the chunkier and the more teeth it's going to have. But you can also shape the actual shape of the distortion here with the pre and post filter options. But other than that, guys, I mean, that's pretty much it. You can get really creative with this because it's such a blank canvas for a lot of cool things to rest on and to be manipulated with. So hope you guys like that. If you're feeling it, if you're vibing, follow for more content like this. All right, guys. Peace.